If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by CartKing.com. That's cart-king.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe adding a new point-of-sale locations across the country quickly, or bring in revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services to your office lobby or warehouse or a hospital, shopping mall, airport. CartKing.com is the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. You go to cart-king.com. You check out all the different designs and models that they got, figure out which one applies to your business. They'll custom build it for you, custom ship it to you. Ship it worldwide. 877-986-7771. Brand new sponsor here is Pure Soap Flake Company. Ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars. By the way, we just got our soap in the mail now. We haven't had a chance to try it out yet, but it smells great. It smells like a baby's bottom. You know, like with those little babies. You know, ever heard of a Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, yuck, synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin. Safe for drains, safe for waterways. They work great in those high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. Order today at puresoapflake.com, greenhome.com, amazon.com, or give them a call, 218-568-2525. Make sure you tell them Ed Opperman sent you. By the way, Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. Can't beat that. Go. Okay, our first guest today is Rich Martini. He has a very accomplished career in filmmaking. You can check him out at richmartini.com. And also, too, he has a film coming up on Gaia TV, Backstage Pass to the Flipside, talking to Bill Paxton. That's coming out on May 16th. But today we're going to be talking about his books, written several books about the afterlife. Let me see some of these here. A tourist guide on how to navigate the afterlife. Hacking the afterlife. But it's a wonderful afterlife. I think he kind of stole that title. Okay, Rich Martini, are you there?
I'm there. Very good. Yes, I kind of did lift that title, but most people don't realize that Frank Capra, the story from It's a Wonderful Life, actually came from like a weird Flipside event that happened in Frank's life. He was he was really sick, or he pretended to be sick. Let's put it that way. He was psychosomatically ill, and he just decided he didn't want to work anymore. And it was this kind of curse of the Oscars. He had won Oscars for a movie, and then he just went to bed and said, "Look, I'm too sick to take those meetings." And suddenly, a guy showed up in his house. Bald-headed guy, never seen before, went into his bedroom and said, "Frank, get out of bed because you have to make people laugh." because Hitler's over there in Germany making people cry, and you're the guy in charge of making people laugh. And so he says he got out of bed, called up his writing friend, and they went off and wrote It's a Wonderful Life. Now, that's in Frank's book. People have, said to me, that's not accurate or whatever. But it's in Frank's book, and that's how he tells the story. So when I started doing the research, and basically a friend of mine died, as we all do. We all have friends who died. And my friend died in 96, Luana Anders, an actress. We had been together for 20 years. And then she started appearing to me in dreams. And I thought, okay, you're dreaming about your friend. But she was appearing in a different age than when I knew her. So she was like younger. And then she was telling me new information. And I thought, okay, this is weird. She must still exist somewhere. And while I was contemplating where she is, I had an out-of-body experience. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Sure. But
I never had one profound like this. And in this case, I found myself through space. I left my apartment in Manhattan and was flying through deep space. And suddenly I went through some kind of a wormhole, like the movie Contact, which came after 6 months. But what got the wormhole was, and it's like her eyes were closed, and she opened up her eyes as if to say, and I heard her in my head say, well, you were looking for me. This is where I am. And at that moment, some guy honked his horn outside my window, and I found myself like a rubber band being yanked back. But I saw everything on the way back in this super fast motion thing of coming back to Manhattan, seeing the city rise up in my face, and then I'm in my bed. But all that happened before the guy took his hand off the horn. So it was like I had traveled, 100 million miles in a second and a half. And that started me down this path. Like, what the heck was that? And my friend Luana had been a Buddhist, so I started studying Tibetan philosophy, and I went to Tibet. I made the films there in India with Robert Thurman. And then one day, somebody turned me on to this work of Michael Newton, who was a hypnotherapist from Los Angeles. And Michael's work is unique because he was a skeptic, didn't believe in past life regressions until somebody spontaneously went into one, in his office. And because he didn't believe it, when the guy said, yeah, I'm being stabbed, it's World War I, and that's the source of this back pain I've had my whole life, and this German soldier is stabbing me. And Newton said, oh, yeah, really? Well, what's your mother's maiden name? What street did you grow up in? What's your best friend's name? And he took all these details down. And, of course, the guy called him the next day and said, my pain is gone. I can't thank you enough. That wasn't enough for Newton, so he contacted the British War Office, and it turns out this guy really did exist, and he had died in 1916. And so that Newton opened up his practice to past life regression, and somewhere in the late 60s, one woman came in very depressed. He said to her, take me to the source of your pain. And she suddenly said, oh, I see. I'm in the life planning session where we're planning my lifetime out, and I'm seeing all my really close friends that I normally incarnate with, but we've all agreed that I won't be with them this time around. And then she looked at Newton and was like, well, thank you, I'm done. And then he was like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Is this visual you're getting? Is this the past? Is this the future? When is this? And she says, no, I can see these people right now. I'm accessing this memory right now. And as Newton put it in the documentary Flipside, that's a journey into the afterlife, and the book based on it is called A Tourist Guide on How to Navigate the Afterlife. He basically said, he stopped his public practice and for the next 30 years only saw people who could take him to that place. 7,000 people over 30 years that he did the research with. Now, I've been researching this for a while, and after meeting him and interviewing him, and I found that Dr. Helen Wambach did the same kind of research in New Jersey. And that's 2,000 people under deep hypnosis talking about the journey. How do we get here? Why do we come here? What's going on? And they all say the same thing consistently. So I started filming people under deep hypnosis with a hypnotherapist, different ones around the country, different people. Sometimes I chose them specifically because they were skeptics, didn't believe in the afterlife. And I had them, be under this 4 to 6 hour session. A Newton Institute trains these people how to do this kind of method. But it's 6 hours of hypnosis. And during that time period, the 50 cases I filmed, they all had the same experience. I've done 5 sessions myself, and I've also had the same experience. And when I first did the first session, Michael Newton suggested, he said, why don't you try it, Rich? And I thought, oh, this is great. I can prove this fake or false because I don't believe in the afterlife. I don't really think I had one. I don't think I can be hypnotized. And I thought, well, great, I'll put the camera on. And if the hypnotherapist is trying to guide me somewhere, trying to tell me, don't you see the Titanic?
Right.
Aren't you Cleopatra?
Right.
I thought, well, I'm just going to say no as long as I can for 4 hours if I have to. I don't see anything. And after about 15 minutes, this guy, Jimmy Quast, who did the session, said, what do you see? I kept saying, I don't see anything, blackness. And he said, well, just look down. Tell me what you see. And by saying that, I suddenly saw my feet in a creek. And then, like a film, it came forward. It was like I pulled back and I saw all these details of a lifetime, which while I was watching it, the conscious mind is going, no way, come on. You saw that movie that was like, I'm arguing with myself, but I'm saying, because that's hypnosis, you try to get to a point where you just say whatever comes to mind. And I'm saying, I'm a Lakota Sioux, and I'm a medicine man, and my name is Watanka, and all these other things that my conscious mind is going, come on, you saw Dances with Wolves, you're out of your mind. Mm. But about 6 months later, after the session, I was at a funeral in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, talking to somebody who was a historian for the Lakota. And I said, oh, great, you can prove this wrong. And I laid out what I said, and he said, hold on a second, what were you wearing? I described it. He said, how many feathers did you have? I told him, he said, well, that means you were a medicine man. I said, what? Okay, well, why was I called Wakantanka? He said, Watanka is what my name was. And he said, because Wakantanka means the Great Spirit. That's what they would have called you. And then I said, well, during the course of this thing, I said, look, the Huron wiped out my tribe. And, we all know the Huron are in upstate New York and the Sioux are in Montana. And I said, how could that be? He said, well, you're sitting in the spot where they fought for 60 years, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Details that I couldn't know, that weren't part of my consciousness, that I couldn't look up, but I later found out to be true. Okay, so once I started down that path of verifying what people were saying under deep hypnosis, not only about previous lifetimes, but about why they chose their lifetimes. This is what they were saying consistently, that we all choose the difficulties, like going to a university and picking classes. I think I'll take a class in, how to get run over by a truck, whatever it is. And, your friends go, no, don't take that class. You're going to be no good at that. But your friends get together with you, and you agree with your friends what the classes are you're going to take.
Well, then let me ask you a question. Why would people choose a life in prison or torture or all the suffering that goes on? Why would people choose that kind of life?
Well, I can tell you, I've talked to people who have chosen those lives. I'll give you an example. So here I am in Chicago filming the beginning of this film, Flipside, which I don't know what the thing is going to be. It's a documentary. I'm shooting on my own. I'm at this conference that Michael Newton is giving, and he's teaching people how to do this process. And they say to me, do you want to film a session? I said, yeah, great. So I'm in a room with about 100 people. There's a woman who's volunteered to do the session. The guy conducting the session is a guy named Paul Orand, who is the former head of the Newton Institute. And standing behind her is Michael Newton, who's kind of helping conduct. Okay, that's the setting. Turn my camera on. This woman, a hypnotherapist from Santa Fe, she basically tells her life story, and then the hypnotherapist says, oh, let's go to a previous lifetime that has some significance to this one. And she says, I'm in Auschwitz, and I'm naked, and we're waiting for the showers to come on. Now, immediately my brain said, oh, how convenient. I've got my camera on, and now we're like the most dramatic, incident that could possibly ever happen. Right. I was so jaded. I thought, she's got to be making this up. But then as I began to film, as I was filming her, she then went back, she said her name. She said where she was from in Warsaw. And I looked up the records at Auschwitz and found her, the names of her kids. And then she goes to the happier part of the life, because they ask you to go back to a happy time, and she does. She describes her life, and then the end of it, and how she moves back home, which is what everybody calls it. When they go somewhere, they say, I'm going home. And then when they get there, she's greeted by all of her guides and teachers. But she gets to a point where she's with her council. They're all elders and people who help you plan your life. And she says, why? Why did I lose everybody? This was a terrible life to examine and be part of. And then she says, and you'll see it in the film, she says, they're showing me, this is going to be hard to express, but they're showing me that it was harder to choose to play the role of a perpetrator than a victim in this lifetime. And my head just blew open. And I sat back from the camera. I looked around the room like, where am I? Easily the most difficult sentence I've ever heard. But then she went on. She said, every day in the camp was an intense lesson, like a PhD in various things like compassion, forgiveness, helping somebody else. Every day was a very, very difficult lesson. However, from my perspective, I'm glad I didn't choose to play the role of somebody who was on the other side of it, because they had a harder time of it. So if you just step in, and so I've been filming for 12 years now, since that, 13 years, and I've filmed people do this, telling the same stories. They were murdered on a ship, and then suddenly they're in between lives, and they're going, oh my God, I see. I asked this person to murder me. I asked the captain of the ship to kill me because I wanted to have a lifetime where I learned the negativity of those actions. So what you find is that if you can just open your mind up for a second to, you're sitting in a theater and you're about to put on a play, and your friends are going to all go on stage, and they want you to participate, and everybody's giving out roles. Now, it would be really boring if there was no conflict on the play, right? Someone's got to play the bad guy. And some people play it really well. Some people are going to play the good guy. The essence of drama is conflict. So when you get on stage, you choose roles. But here's the point. When you get off stage, you drop the props. You drop the costumes. You go back home and you get together with your friends, and they give you high fives or whatever they do. They go, yeah, you did a lousy job, or you did a great job. We think you were fantastic. And you may be doubtful that you did a good job. You may even say, I wanted to learn how to overcome my anger, but I didn't do it. I gave up. And then they'll say, well, next time, the next play, we'll work on that the next time. So we have a tendency to think of lifetimes as this finite thing. Obviously, how could you not? You're living it. But when you step outside and look at your lifetimes in terms of the 20 or 30 or 40 roles you might have played with friends of yours, you start to see there's a theme, an overall theme that you've been playing through all your lifetimes, if that makes any sense.
Well, then let me ask you this. Then why do we have a natural fear of death? It's natural.
Well, let's hold on.
Okay.
Let's break that down for a second. What is death, right? What is that? And what is fear? What is that? And what's natural? Those three things, we can agree that sentence makes sense, but when we break those words down, fear is something obviously that doesn't exist outside of us. It only exists in our mind. So some people experience fear, some people don't. Some people don't have any fear.
But you have it's a physical reaction. You have your body, your heart beats, your sweat. Some people are incontinence, fear.
Some people do. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And some people don't.
Right.
I'm just saying, not everybody does. So you have to start there.
Okay.
Not everybody experiences life the same way. You experience life your way. Now, you have to understand a little bit how consciousness works within this architecture. And I'm talking about based on this research, and I've been doing it for so long. Here's what people say. We bring about a third of our consciousness to a human life. 2/3 of our consciousness is always back home. So while we're here, think about that, only a third of who we are is here within the human body. When you go into the human body, the brain has limiters or filters that don't have, so you can't access all that other information. Why? It's just the way it works with humans. When you have an consciousness altering event, could be a near-death experience, could be drugs, could be deep hypnosis, the filters are altered so you can experience the other 2/3. You can go back home and experience all that stuff. But while you're here on stage, you have these, how stereo works. The sound comes into the stereo and then it gets filtered and then it gets limited so that you can actually hear instruments. If those filters were off, it would be just cacophony all the time. So in the case of being here, you filter things down. Now, if you want a scientific explanation for how those filters work, I recommend taking a look at Dr. Bruce Grayson's YouTube talk called is consciousness produced by the brain, where he explains in great detail the medical cases where people without brains are still experiencing consciousness, whether it's somebody who is severe Alzheimer's and their brain is atrophied, and then suddenly just before they die, they remember everybody. 70% of the cases in the UK and hospice care workers dealing with Alzheimer's patients report that their clients, patients, suddenly recovered their memories. Oh, look, there's Uncle Pete. Hey, there's my wife. Oh, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And then when they die, the brain's autopsied, and it shows that they should not have been able to access any memory. But the reason they do is because, according to Dr. Grayson, the filters have died. So the filters that are on the brain that keep us from accessing this information, and let's say the human part of your brain, which is fear of death, survive, 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 there's that. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. Of course it does. But when we talk about nature and nurture, those are the two things that cover all of our science, all of our education, all of our medicine. We're missing a third piece, which is this journey, this spirituality, this whatever you want to call it, this coming person consciousness, conscious energy showing up, being here, and not dying. So when a person ends their role, the not dead part, goes back home. And that's just like Uncle Pete. That is Uncle Pete. You know, it's no different. So when you talk about ghosts, or when you talk about a phenomenon that we don't understand and we don't blah, blah, blah. Once I've been doing this for so long, interviewing people on the other side, where they say consistently, look, we know we still exist. Once we die, we know we still exist. It's you people who don't believe we do. So it's very difficult for us to communicate with you, because no matter how much we shout or yell or move pennies around or throw things in front of you, you don't believe that we still exist. So it makes it a very difficult thing. So in terms of my journey and my path, somewhere about 3 or 4 years ago, a medium contacted me and said, Jennifer Schaefer out of Manhattan Beach. And she said, I really love your work and I'd like to work with you. And I just feel like we're supposed to get together. And I was like, well, mediumship, what do you mean? You're predicting the future? The future doesn't exist. Or you're telling me about soulmates? I mean, soulmates, some people sign up for a lifetime where they're going to be with the soulmate. Sometimes they don't. So I'm trying to talk her out of this conversation. And she says, well, I said, well, so what do you do as a medium? She says, I work with law enforcement, FBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation. We, help find missing persons. Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, that's weird. I've been working on the Amelia Earhart story for 30 years. I worked on all the films that have made about her. I'm the research guy. How'd you like to help me find Amelia Earhart? She was like, I'm in. So I took my camera over to her office, and for 3 hours, I interviewed somebody who knows as much about Amelia Earhart as I do. And in my humble research, I've met everybody, and I know what happened to Amelia Earhart. So now when I'm asking questions to her, and she's giving me accurate answers, it becomes like mind-bending. But at some point, Amelia gives us new information, because this is what you want to look for in any of these cases, People would say, well, look, you looked it up, or maybe you saw a movie or something. In this case, Amelia, I asked Amelia, so how did you die? Because I had just come back from Saipan, where I had filmed 15 new eyewitnesses, people who saw her there or parents saw her or whatever. And I had 2 conflicting reports. One was that she was beheaded, and one that she was shot. And so I'm asking her, how did you die? And Jennifer, the medium, says, she's showing me dysentery. And I go, wait. No, I talked to this person, I talked to that person. It's got to be one or the other. Which one is it? She goes, no, it's dysentery. She said, but when those 2 GIs dug up my body, they only found my arm. I happen to know, and Jennifer couldn't know, that 2 GIs in a book in 1963 confirmed that they had been sent by their sergeant to go out and dig up Amelia Earhart in Saipan. I knew who these 2 guys were. I had done the research. But for Jennifer to say that suddenly out of nowhere with a new piece of information, that they only recovered my arm, you see, that was mind-bending. So I kid you not, driving away from her office, my head spinning, and the phone rings, and it's an NTSB investigator from Seattle, a friend of mine, who had just been given privy to some, top secret documents that he had been shown from an investigator, and he spent 5 hours going through this guy's documents, and he was calling me to say, Rich, everything you've told me about Earhart is in the documents. It's all accurate. He said, except when they dug up her body, they only found her arm. This was not something I knew 10 minutes earlier. I had just heard it from Amelia Earhart herself. So 6 months later after that, I was doing some more research, and I found a UPI article, Chicago Tribune, January 1977, where these two guys were interviewed, and off camera, they said, when we dug up her body, we only found her arm and a partial rib cage. Not a detail that was in the zeitgeist or online or anywhere, you see? And like I said, I've been doing 30 years of research, so to hear a detail from somebody no longer on the planet, somebody I did not know, somebody I could not have known, but somebody who I'm intimately familiar with her story, gives you pause. And so since then, I have been using mediums like cell phones, not disposable cell phones, but like cell phones, where I sit down and during the course of my interview, I ask if I can access someone that I knew. Someone I know so intimately that whatever their answers are, I'm going to understand whether it's accurate or not. And that's how the film Talking to Bill Paxton came about, because I interview on camera 3 different mediums who don't know who Bill is, but I do, because, we met when he was doing Aliens back in London, and I've, knew him through all the years since. And so in the course of interviewing Bill, once he's crossed over, he's giving the medium details that only I would know, you see?
Well, let me ask you this. Why would you need a medium? You can't do this yourself?
Well, no.
Okay.
And nobody, because I got filters on.
Okay.
All right? And we all do. But some of us, I just had this question yesterday. So I'm talking to Jennifer Schaefer. We get together once a week, and I film her for like an hour or 2 hours. And I do the same thing. I'm talking to people on the other side. And sometimes it's people I know. Sometimes it's people I met. Sometimes it's people I don't know. I've never met. But they have something important that they want to pass along, okay? And I try not to judge what I'm hearing, because who am I to judge if somebody wants to come forward and tell me something to tell their child? I'm happy to do it. But in this particular case, I said to her, I'm going to ask this question. I've done 5 of these between life sessions. And since then, I've been doing sort of a version of hypnotherapy with some people. Some people contact me and they ask me to go through this process where I help them access the other side without any hypnosis. You can see an example of it on my YouTube page, Martini Prods on YouTube, where I walk Dr. Drew into a council on the Flipside to talk to his counselors in the course of about 20 minutes, just to show and demonstrate that Dr. Drew, who's a skeptic, doesn't believe in the afterlife, but at some point we were there talking to his guide, and we were there talking to his teachers who were giving him answers. I'm not answering the questions, he is, but I'm asking the questions. Can we go see your counsel? Can we go talk to this person? And Drew afterwards said, I feel like you hypnotized me because I was seeing things I can't access in life. But, it turns out, and this is what the question I was asking yesterday, which is talking about this stuff, asking these questions while people are fully conscious, does give us access to these things. And not everybody, because, look, somebody's listening to this right now who goes, oh, yeah, it's funny. I have dreams about talking to councils. I've done, listen, I've been doing this for enough that I know people contact me out of the blue and they go, God, you described exactly what my recurring dream is. I'm sitting in front of a council and they're telling me, everything's going to be okay. So what's the benefit and what's important? The benefit is this. I go and visit these councils with these people, and they say the same things, which is everything's going to be okay. You're here for a reason, and we're always with you. You don't think we're with you because the filters are very strongly in place, but we are always with you. You can always access us. You can always ask us questions. We've always got your back. No matter how difficult it seems. The point being, suicide's a popular thing for people to do, and the question is, so what are you doing it for? And the reason is because I ask people, I'm asking these questions, what'd you do it for? And they always say, I just felt I was so alone. I had nobody to connect with, or whatever it is. The drug kicked in, or I didn't mean to, or whatever that process is. But what they're shocked to find is they still exist. They step outside of themselves. They look around like, oh, wow, what a bummer. I'm still here. But now I've caused pain with everybody that I loved. And now they're miserable, and I can feel their pain because it's much more intensive over there to feel the experience of people here. So, if at the very least, here's what I recommend people do when they're depressed. And we have to talk about this because whenever I drop it in a nugget like people don't die, people start thinking about suicide. Listen, the amygdala is really key in this, that is the regulator of serotonin. If you want to look up the research, you'll find Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin did an epic study on meditation, and he showed how a single session of meditation can change the shape of the amygdala, and that helping the amygdala cures, and that word is underlined, cures or alleviates symptoms of depression. So any one of your listeners feeling depressed, know someone who's depressed, just Google it. Richard Davidson, University of Wisconsin. You'll find he's the guy who invented the term mindfulness. And it's, scientifically proven that meditation can cure people, help people away from, SSRI drugs, which are, the bane of our existence, where, Prozac, Zoloft, whatever. It helps a lot of people. But I've heard statistics as high as 15%, have severe reactions and side effects, which we know what they are. So, I can't say on one hand, that people don't die and everything's okay once you get onto the flip side, without also saying, you're here for a reason. You signed up to be here. Do the work. Get in there and find out how you can help yourself or help your loved ones.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And Rich, we got to take a commercial break. But before we go, real quick, I want to answer a question. And now, are you a hypnotist? Have you been trained in hypnosis?
I have been a little bit trained. I did. Scott DeTamble works out of Claremont, California. He's brilliant. He also does sessions on Skype. His website is Light Between Lives. And Scotty's a good friend. But at some point, he had me film one of his training sessions, and at the end of me participating and everything, he handed me a degree. So I'm familiar with hypnosis.
Okay.
And all I can tell you is it's not what you think it is. It's not being unconscious. It's identical to guided meditation. That's what it is.
No, I've been hypnotized, and I do self-hypnosis using YouTube videos and stuff like that occasionally now.
Oh, that's good.
And I've also done past life regression, too, back in a Canyon Ranch in Tucson. What do you think of their program down there, their past life regression program down there?
Well, I'm not familiar with it, but I can tell you this. Listen, it's okay to use the YouTube as a tune-up.
Yeah.
But if you really want to get to these deeper questions, it's always good to have a guide there, because if you run into something that you're not familiar with, it can be disconcerting. Let's put it that way. In my case, when I do these sessions that I've been doing, not under hypnosis, where I'm talking people on the flip side, sometimes they see people and things over there that are disconcerting. Like, what the heck is that? But because I'm familiar with it, I can say, well, let's ask that thing a question. Who are you? What are you doing here? What's your role in this person's life? And do they know you from a previous lifetime? And once you sort of start asking those questions, then whatever is fearful or has fear-based, you start to dissipate it, and you realize, oh, okay, well, this is just part of my journey. It's okay, if that makes sense. So I recommend, doing hypnotherapy with a and the Newton Institute, I've filmed so many of those guys. They have a searchable database, so I recommend them because I own them.
Okay, excellent. Let's take a commercial break. Time's flying, man. I tell you, this is great stuff. We're with Richard Martini. Martini Prods is his YouTube channel. richmartini.com is his website. He's got Backstage Pass to the Flipside, the movie coming out, talking to Bill Paxton. That's going to be on Gaia TV May 16th. And we're talking about several books here. Just go on Amazon and look up Rich Martini. He's got a bunch of books here. What are these here real quick? A Tourist Guide on How to Navigate the Afterlife, Flipside. Hacking the Afterlife. It's a wonderful afterlife. We'll be right back with more of Rich Martini after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Check out cartking.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, cartking.com can be the answer to your needs. Cartking.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, cartking.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, cartking.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, cartking.com. Please visit today at cartking.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Almightygold.com. Would you like to start investing in gold? But you can't afford to buy a whole ounce of gold, or certainly can't buy a bar of gold. With almightygold.com, you can invest in gold in these carat bars as little as of 1/10 of a gram of gold. So you can start investing tonight for as little as $6, $8. You can put your money in a product that's going to increase in value, not to be wasted on the trivial things we spend our money on every day. You can buy these carat bars. They're embedded into a credit card-sized plastic card. There's a watermark on it. There's a security strip on it, and it's all authenticated. You don't want to have them all sent to you at once. You can have them stored in their global savings vault for secure and safekeeping. They ship it to you when it reaches $1,000. When you have $1,000 in savings and you put it aside for a rainy day, for an emergency, you can barter with these little, guaranteed amounts of gold here in this little card. They also have a cryptocurrency that's backed by gold. And if you want to get into the gold business, become an affiliate of almightygold.com, contact us at almightygold.com. That's their email address. Contact us at almightygold.com, and they can put you in the gold business. Gold. Okay, welcome back to the welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Rich Martini. Check out his YouTube, Martini Prods. His website is richmartini.com. Backstage Pass to the Flipside movie coming out. Talking to Bill Paxton coming out on Gaia TV May 16th. How can we find Gaia TV? How can we watch that?
Oh, Gaia TV. I think it's just Gaia.com.
Go to Gaia.com.
I think the guy, I wish I knew more about it, but basically the guy who created the clothing line, there is a clothing line, was a very wealthy dude, and he just decided he was, just Gaia.com.
Okay.
They have it's a website for, sort of consciousness-focused stuff. They also distribute the film Flipside, A Journey into the Afterlife, which you can find on Amazon. If you're curious about this stuff, I would say invest the $2, whatever it costs to stream, Flipside, and you'll get a sense of who Michael Newton was. You'll get a sense of what I'm talking about. I put this film together as a documentary just because I thought it would be interesting, and I put it together as a companion piece for the book. And so like you mentioned, I'm a filmmaker. I've written and or directed 8 theatrical features. I've written other ones that haven't been made, and it's kind of what I've been making my living doing. But suddenly I got pulled into this rabbit hole when I decided I was going to make this documentary about Michael Newton. And the next thing you know, Ed and I are talking on the air.
And how about Amazon? Can you find that on Amazon.com?
Yeah, just Amazon. If you just search my name, Rich Martini, or Flipside Martini, you're going to find me.
Yeah, I don't even know why I'm asking you that, because I saw it on Amazon. I don't even know what I'm saying it for. Let me ask you a couple of questions, because you mentioned a couple of times being here, right, and then also, too, being home. Now, so when you went and visited your friend in that dream, you had that out-of-body experience, and you visited her at home, what did it look like? Were there buildings? Were there houses? Forests?
Well, in that particular case, I can tell you the experience was going sort of up as I was leaving Manhattan, and so I was aware that I was going through stars, but I had turned below to see Manhattan disappear, and now I was going at an incredible rate of speed, so fast that stars were melting. Not exactly like a Star Trek, kind of, or light speed Star Wars thing, but similar. And then suddenly I got to a point, and I can only describe it as a black hole, because suddenly I took a sharp turn as if I was being pulled there. And I bounced around what I can only describe as a wormhole, because how else would you describe that? But I was bouncing around. And when I came out the other side, I was aware that I was still traveling at this rate of speed, but instead of going up, I was going left to right. That's the only way I can describe it. And so after traveling left to right, I suddenly stopped. And there she was. Now, it's interesting because it's a great question, because what's your observation? So my observation was her as an older person, as I knew her, and her eyes were closed. And so, I froze, I stopped, and then I'm looking at her and thinking to myself, well, that's weird. Her eyes are closed. Now she opened her eyes, and then I could hear her in my head saying, you were looking for me. This is where I am. Now, cut to, I'm doing the session. I'm filming Michael Newton's conference, and then I'm doing this film, and they say to me, why don't you do a session? And I thought, well, I'm not going to go anywhere, but okay, I know how to do that. I'll write up some questions just in case. And I also threw in trick questions, because I thought mistakenly, that somehow the hypnotherapist might be guiding me or whatever. But at some point, my friend Luana, before she died, she said to me, I feel like I'm going to another universe. And I said, what does that mean? She said, I have this recurring dream where I'm in a classroom in some other universe where everyone's kind of dressed in white, and they're speaking a language I've never heard before, but somehow over there I completely understand it. And at the time I thought, okay, that's the morphine drip. She must be hallucinating that. But then the day she died, a close friend of hers called me from Hawaii and said, I had the most wonderful dream about Luana last night. She was in the 4th dimension, she said, and she was in a classroom, and everyone was dressed in white. And I was like, what? And then I mentioned it to the hospice nurse, and she said, nearly fainted. She said that was her recurring dream. So now I was like, classrooms in the afterlife, what the heck is that? And then had to be 5 or 6 years later, I became aware of Michael Newton's work. And the book Journey of Souls, I pick it up, and the first chapter, a guy is saying, well, while I'm under hypnosis, I'm in a classroom and everyone's dressed in white. And so I was like, okay, well, that must, like that bell went off in my head. This must be something I'm supposed to pursue. And that's how the documentary really started. And I contacted them and said, so now here I am doing a deep hypnosis session. It's 4 hours long. But, about a half hour to an hour into it, we get to a point where the hypnotherapist, I remembered this previous lifetime. I remembered the death of that lifetime. Then he's like, where do you go next? And I said, I want to go home. And now I see myself with friends and people that I don't recognize consciously, but over there, they're like, hey, Rich, how are you? Good to see you. And I'm thinking to myself, this is so bizarre. And then the hypnotherapist says, where do you want to go? And I said, well, I want to visit my friends. When I said that, suddenly I was in the classroom. But I wasn't with Luana. I was with somebody else, okay? I just said I want to visit my friends. So I'm in a classroom. I see this very lovely teacher at the front of the room, like a classroom. Okay, and I teach film, so I know what classrooms look like. I'm walking in, all the students are facing forward. There's this woman up at the front, and she's introducing me, and she's saying, "Oh, my friend is here, Richard. It's so great to see him." I don't think she said Richard, whatever she said. My friend is here, and all the students turn and eager-faced, happy students. And now I'm telling the hypnotherapist, "Oh, this is a classroom where they take the geometric shapes that travel with us through all of our lifetimes, which retain all of the emotional memories from all those lifetimes, and they clean them up." That's not a sentence I've ever heard, never read. I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm saying it, right? And I'm saying it aloud, so because I'm filming it, so I could look at it later and like, what? And then after that experience of this classroom sort of excited to see teacher's friend, the hypnotherapist says, "Where do you want to go next?" And I said, "Well, I want to find Luana." So now I'm in a classroom, and this is a different classroom. It's much bigger. It's like an auditorium. So I'm up like in the upper deck, and down below I can see a teacher standing on a stage. And I start to speak, and I say, "Oh, this is weird. This is a classroom." And I see my friend Luana sitting in the back row, but she's about 20 years old, like 10 years before I met her. She's wearing a ponytail, but I clearly see that it's her. But she's looking at me like, "What are you doing?" Your hands are up, like, "Why are you here?" And as I'm talking, I realize the class has stopped and the teacher has stopped. They're all looking at me like, "Who are you?" If you can imagine being in a casino in Vegas and suddenly an apparition appears and the guy's like giving a tour. "And over here, you've got blah, blah, blah," freak everybody out. But in this classroom, they all froze. And I say, "Oh, God, I don't think I'm supposed to be talking aloud here, but I've come a long way. So let me tell you what this is. This is a classroom in the healing light of the universe. And these people, are being taught how to help healers on the planet to heal people." And one of the students turned and looked at me and said, "You don't know what you're talking about." And I thought, okay, this is weird. If I'm making this up, I'm having a student challenge me, right there in front of everybody. And I look at him and I say, "Well, listen, I understand that people don't always sign up for a lifetime where that they're healed, or the doctors don't sign up to heal all their patients. They have to understand the energy of illness as well as healing." And the guy nodded and went, "Okay, you do know what you're talking about." Now, the point of the story, as weird as that is that 2 years later, when I'm writing the book Flipside, I'm with Scott DeTamble in another state. I'm with another hypnotherapist in another state, and he goes, "Hey, Rich, why don't we do a session together, and let's see what happens?" And I thought, oh, great, maybe I made all that stuff up. Maybe I didn't go to it. I don't know, whatever. So he starts counting me down, back from whatever it was, 100, get to about 98, and I say, I'm already back. It was like the door had been left open. So now I'm back in the classroom. And this is 2 years later, right? But I'm back in the classroom, but only 2 minutes have gone by. And Luana has now walked me down to the front of the class, and I'm standing in front of this teacher who's about 8 feet tall, and he's looking down at me, and she's saying, "I'm so sorry. I have to apologize. This is my friend. He's doing his project back on Earth, and he came here because he's trying to help people, blah, 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 blah." And the teacher's looking at me, and I'm like, oh, my God. It's like that Shakespeare's Nightmare, that play where the guy he wakes up, he's in the middle of a Shakespeare play, and he doesn't know which one it is.
Right.
So the teacher turns to me and says, "So what do you want to know?" And I'm thinking, oh, my God, I'm like talking to a teacher on the flip side. But thank God I had the presence of mind to go, okay, well, was I right about that? Blah, blah. What is the process? How do you call upon the healing light of the universe? I'm asking these questions and, presenting myself, whatever, with as best as I can as a human in this weird classroom on the flip side. So what my point is that when you have this experience of what I'm talking about, right, it's an experience. It's not something I imagined. It's new and totally new information. I've never seen an 8-foot-tall person. I've never seen a guy that looks like this. He's partially green, and he's like mostly light, and he's not happy. He's not a benevolent guy. He looks, he's a little bit like kind of like a tough teacher. Like, what are you doing here? Like, and what's your point? And Luana, who I've, known, who I knew for 20 years, it was my close and dear friend, is in this position of apologizing profusely for my, being so rude. So that's all weird. You see, well, my point is that if I was making all this up, that's not what I would, as a screenwriter, that's not what I would write. I would write, oh, Rich is here, exciting. Oh, the teacher wants to meet me.
Sir Martini is here, yeah. Let me ask you, the great Martini. Let me ask you a question. Now, what about, you say that when they come back here, right, being here, now, is it always here on Earth, or do they come back to other planets too as well?
Well, that's a dang good question. So the first time it occurred to me that there might be other places to incarnate was in the book Flipside, because Scott DeTambo called me. He said, "Hey, Rich, I just had a really bizarre session. I think you should meet this guy." So he said, with the guy's permission, he sent me the session. I've transcribed it. It's in the book. It's in the chapter Over the Rainbow. This guy's remembering a lifetime on another planet that he normally incarnates on, a little bit like he describes the creatures like in Arrival. This is a long time ago, but the creatures kind of look and act and everything else super highly intelligent. And he's talking about how much more cool his planet is than this place is. And he's saying, I came here along with some friends of mine. We're trying to help alter the consciousness of the planet. So since then, and recently I've had some very unusual conversations, which aren't in print yet. But let's just say that I've talked to a number of people. Well, here's a statistic for you. So Michael Newton told me in his interview that 10% of his clients that, these sessions had off-world experience, meaning they remembered lifetimes on another planet or in some other universe or in some other realm, okay? 10%. And when I interviewed Pete, Pete Smith, the new head of the Institute for It's a Wonderful Afterlife, he said that number has risen to 30%. So that was a few years ago. So that means either that more people are finding Newton-trained hypnotherapists to discover why they feel so odd or foreign, but that means, 3 out of 10 people that come to see a hypnotherapist claims that they've had a lifetime off-world. In the past, 3 or 4 months, I've talked to maybe 6 or 7 people, friends of mine, some close friends, who, while they're sort of accessing, without hypnosis, while they're accessing this other side stuff, they recall lifetimes on other planets. And so the question is, what are you doing here? It's not like, oh, they're here. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Why did you choose to be here when you apparently had so much fun over there? And they say, we're here to help the planet, not only to alter consciousness, but also to save the planet from itself. And according to them, there have been times within history, whatever you want to call that, where people have screwed up their planets and killed their planets. And they had, everybody died on the planet because they killed it. But of course, they don't die. They just go back home and then they choose a new place to incarnate. And I know that sounds disconcerting, but basically, they're here to help change the planet. So, the next time somebody says something about climate change, really let your ears perk up. Like maybe they've got an answer. And they're trying to do that. That's what they're trying to do.
Rich, this is great stuff, man, and I got to have you come back. I'd like to have you come back just to talk about Amelia Earhart one day, but also to really get it out. I'll have you on every week if I could. I can't really get something going here.
You can hear that I talk really fast. Of course, it's not just the coffee that I've had.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you, so I've decided that my next film for Guy is going to be Backstage Pass to the Flipside. And by the way, the reason it's called the 2 books, book 1 and book 2, Backstage Pass to the Flipside, Talking to the Afterlife with Jennifer Schaefer. The reason it's called that is because during one of our sessions, Tom Petty, the musician, showed up I was talking with Jennifer, and I was like, well, I don't know Tom. Do you know Tom? She's like, no. And I said, Tom, what are you doing here? He said, well, I know people that are in your class or in the peak group over here. He said, your friend Luana is like the person with the backstage passes, and she's the one who allows them to talk to you. So that's where the title of the book came from, because we have these conversations. Remember I said I've used mediums like a cell phone? We have these conversations where we talk to, think of any famous person that's died in the past 2 or 3 years. And I asked them, like, what was your journey about? Who was there to greet you when you crossed over? et cetera, et cetera. And the next person I'm going to do that with filmically is Amelia Earhart for Gaia.
Rich Martini, I can't thank you enough, man. This is great stuff, okay? And people can find him at richmartini.com. Backstage Pass to the Flipside, the movie Talking to Bill Paxton, May 16th, coming out on Gaia TV. And which is the one you said, the Flipside one, the first movie to watch?
The first movie is called Flipside, A Journey into the Afterlife, and the companion book is Flipside, also called Flipside.
Yeah, so check that out.
A Tourist Guide on How to Navigate the Afterlife.
Hey, Rich Martini, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this.
Thanks, Ed.
I really enjoyed
this. No worries.
Thank you. Okay, man, great stuff there from Rich Martini. Martini Prods is his YouTube channel. I'm going to check that out. Backstage Pass to the Flipside, a movie coming out on Gaia TV May 16th. Great stuff. Thank you so much, Rich Martini. Gotta have him come back, man. I wish I had more time today, but we have a lot of stuff going on over here. There's a lot of the guys. If you only knew what's going on over here, the good old Opperman land, you wouldn't believe it. I got a film crew coming tomorrow. They were supposed to come. I think they were supposed to come today, but they're coming tomorrow night. They're going to be fly on the wall here in my house. So I've been working out, been dieting, and trying to arrange things, and shopping for clothes, and trimming my beard, and dyeing my hair, and all this kind of stuff. Man, this is a nightmare. You have no idea how to get myself into this crap. And then anyway, I'll tell you more as time goes on. But I did do past life regression myself in Canyon Ranch, and I don't know, man. I want to get him to the whole stuff about with the teachings of the Bible, who tell us to avoid these kind of things. I'd like to discuss that with him on a future episode. I need to sit down with him and book a 2-hour segment with Rich there. We can really, because there's so much to it about like vivid dreams. When you have these really vivid dreams, and you're remembering a whole nother. You're remembering something in your dream, another memory that didn't really happen in this life. When you wake up, it says, "Well, that memory was so clear," And then parallel existences, and time travel. So many questions I have but it seems to have done a lot of research with the different doctors and all kind of stuff. I don't know, man. Rich Martini, check him out. MartinProds.com, RichMartini.com. And check out his films there, The Flipside and The Backstage. And just Google Amazon, and you'll find all this stuff there. If you like today's show, check out OppermanReport.com. There's no time travel or past life over there, man. It's all this life where I'm trying to raise money to keep the show on the air. So if you become a member, this show might be in the member section. We're adding tons and tons of shows in the member section. I did a show about Dannemora Prison. Did another show about Paul is Dead with Tina Foster. Did a show with this guy, Richard, Kirk O'Connell. We talked about everything, man, but Michael Aquino and what was that guy? Jeff McDonald, Fort Bragg, heroin smuggling. We got into a whole bunch of stuff there. Mind control, the U.S. government being what do you call it? A pathocracy, I think he calls it. Fascinating man. I really enjoyed my time with him. I think it was, like he said, he was 71 years old. So anyway, OppermanReport.com. That's where we have our member section. As little as $6 a month, guys. You can't beat $6 a month. Okay, and if we just had, if 1/10 of 1% of the people who listen to this show, if just 1% of the people who listen on YouTube would just sign a monthly membership, we'd be making like $6,000, $60,000 a month. The numbers are just phenomenal. Just if everybody who sent me an email every day just was a member, I'd be floating in dough, And then we can get so much done here. So anyway, OppermanReport.com, that's where you can become a member for $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $74 for a year. If you want a discount, you email me at OppermanReport@gmail.com. And you get a year's membership for $65. 13 months, a year and a month. A baker's year, they call it. 13 months for $65. Can't beat that. Always advertising opportunities here. Let me tell you something. I'm looking at the Spreaker advertising, and they're definitely, I know my ads are successful because so many advertisers are bidding to get on our show. So that's I can tell you that it works. Okay. So advertising rates, contact me at OppermanReport@gmail.com. I'll give you a good rate. Donate. You want to donate $5, $10, $100? I'll never turn it down. What? But you can't bust my balls. Okay? Just because you donate doesn't mean I work for free, or you're gonna start trying to would it influence the content of the show. Okay, all right. And you give me $1 million, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you no matter what. Okay, I'm gonna report to you the truth no matter what. I don't care how much money you're trying to send me. So that's out. Opperman can't be bought. He can't be paid off. Can't touch Opperman. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. And thank you, Rich Martini. Martini Prods is the YouTube, richmartini.com. And all these different books, man. Flipside and Backstage Pass. Check it out. Great stuff there. Thank you so much, Rich Martini.